Dana Holgorsen, just 18-20 the past 3 seasons in Morgantown. We bring in David Smith of Smoking Musket on the SB Nation platform for West Virginia Athletics to talk up the Mountaineers for 2015 with us just a little over 2 weeks away from college football. So, David, thanks so much for joining us.
Mark, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this should be good stuff. Let's dive into the Mountaineers because from a national perspective, what you pretty much knew last season was that there were two very talented wide receivers on the outside and a quarterback in Clint Trickett that could sling it all over the place. The offense ranked top 10 nationally in passing offense, 12th in total offense. So you got Skyler Howard, who impressive, 8 touchdowns to no interceptions last season, 51% passer. Your thoughts about Howard's transition and what you've seen out of him thus far?
Well, he was pretty impressive where he came to not having a whole lot of experience last year, just being able to plug in whenever Clint Trickett had to come out injury-wise or just overall. So he came in during the K-State game, did pretty well, actually almost engineered a comeback whenever West Virginia didn't really have any business being in that game after the first half. The Iowa State game, he played well considering the opponents, and then against Texas A&M, just didn't have that consistency that if he would have just made a few passes, he would have been fine. But whenever it comes to Skyler Howard, it's just all about consistency. I mean, whenever he started the spring game, it was like he came out firing, like he was 3 for 3 for 65 yards, like slinging the ball around. And then the next few passes, like next thing you know, he's 5 for 12 with like 83 yards. So it's just to the point where he gets on cold streaks, and whenever he misses by a lot. It's one of those things where one of the reasons why he didn't throw any interceptions, as you alluded to, was that whenever he misses everybody. It's not like to the point where it's like by a foot where like there's a defender around, no one's around. So that is a problem. And like I said, whenever it comes to that problem being there during the spring game, it's getting pretty close to the season. You can assume that Dana Holgorsen would be able to work this out considering his past with quarterbacks, but that's just one of the big question marks for his team this year.
Yeah, considering the talent on the outside that they had last season, 51%, not a real good indication. I know that there's going to be some chemistry issues when you bring up the backup that didn't have all the reps with the first team that Trickett had, but still, considering the high-octane offense and the receivers winning battles downfield, you would think that that number would be higher. And in a Dana Holgorsen offense, it has to get higher because the offense is relied upon so heavily. Got a 5-star recruit who has turned out to be a pretty decent player, and Rushell was hobbled by an ankle last season, still gained about 800 yards. How does the running back position look with him and anybody else who's going to complement him?
Very strong, actually. I would actually say the rushing game is one of those things that you don't have to worry about whenever it comes to West Virginia's offense this year. With, as you alluded to, Rushell, Wendell Smallwood coming back, and a very highly touted recruit in Dante Thomas-Williams, who very much impressed in the spring game this year. All 3 of them look like they're going to be getting a lot of touches. And Rushell, as you said, 800 yards last year. Wendell Smallwood also had 800 yards last year. And with injuries, they had the exact same type of situation where they were getting kind of spotty games wherever it came to touches because they weren't always healthy, but they were still able to contribute adequately. And plus, with this third guy, as I said, Dante Thomas-Williams, this should be a pretty balanced attack whenever you see West Virginia, which is not something you commonly see out of a Dana Holgorsen offense.
We mentioned White. We mentioned Alford. Big production out of those guys, 174 catches last year, 21 touchdowns. Who can we expect to see this fall?
Well, that's actually one of the big headlines for this year coming into the season, considering the fact that, as you said, like our 2 biggest guys on the outside are gone. But Kevin White's little brother, Karan White, looks like he actually has the top spot for the X-wide receiver. And Javon Durante, a very highly touted recruit out of Miramar High School in Miami. He actually was going to go to Miami, then decided not to, was going to go to West Virginia, and then decided, you know, like he might actually try Alabama for a little bit, and then he decided to actually come to West Virginia. He enrolled around, I think it was June or July this year, 2015 pickup. True freshman, and he is now looking like he's going to get a ton of touches. All of the coaches so far during this camp have been pretty much just like tooting his horn, just saying he's lighting the world on fire. So it's one of those things where you're not really sure if he's going to be like the person that actually steps up and as an 18-year-old is going to be the star. So it's either going to be Karan White, Jerron Durante, or Sheldon Gibson, one of those guys that like he contributed a little bit last year, but everyone's been waiting for him to have that breakout year, and this actually might be the one.
We like to talk about the skill position players and the guys that get out in space and make things happen and break open football games. But if you don't have the offensive front, then you don't get them the football. So the offensive line, David, your thoughts about where you stand there?
Should be strong, actually, this year with a lot of people coming back. And plus, whenever it comes to Kyle Bosch, a Michigan transfer coming in, adding to that West Virginia lineup, it should help with Yanni Kajewski being a pretty young guy over on left tackle. But Adam Pankey, Todd Arlovsky, Tony Mateo, Marquise Lucas all come back, all very good, all experienced, as I said, with Kyle Bosch coming in, who has a little bit of the Big Ten experience. It should actually be one of West Virginia's more solid lines if they can work on the chemistry of those five guys, because there's a lot of people going in and out of positions over the last 3 years. Adam Pankey has moved about 3 or 4 times so far. So it's going to, you want to be able to see those five guys work properly, and with Ron Crook, the new first-year offensive line coach coming in, it's going to be a matter of chemistry rather than talent.
All right, David Smith joining us from Smoking Musket. Let's talk some defense. Not necessarily up to par with the offense. Pretty much that standard knowledge across the board in college football when talking about West Virginia under Dana Holgorsen. Defensive coordinator Tony Gibson has said, hey, if this defense doesn't play better, it's on me. So he's put this on his back, tried to take some pressure off his players. Linebacker Nick Kwiatkowski, he's one of the better ones in the Big 12. You got a safety in Drayvon Henry, who could turn out to be a star. I'm just going to throw out the defense for you. We know that it pretty much ranked bottom half of the nation in just about every category last year. Do you have hopes of better play out of the Mountaineers defensively?
Surprisingly, the defense is one of the strong suits for the team this year. I know it's actually surprising for anyone to find that out about the West Virginia team, especially a few years ago whenever the West Virginia defense was historically bad, especially statistically. But they returned almost all of their secondary, with Carl Joseph being an absolute beast in the background. Darrell Worley comes back. Terrell Chestnut comes back. You already talked about Drayvon Henry. Shaq Petaway, Jared Barber, all of these guys have extreme experience, and they've been playing in big games. All of these guys contributed to the Baylor knockoff last year, almost beating TCU. All of these guys stood up to Alabama week 1 last year. So surprisingly, you can actually say West Virginia's defense is the strongest out of all 3 sides of the ball for the Mountaineers.
Okay. Interesting. And you got a place kicker in Josh Lambert, who's one of the better ones in the conference, if not the entire country, on the Lou Groza Award watch list there. So take some pressure off the offense. Don't need to convert down near the red zone. You can kick long field goals if you can just muster a little bit of offense there. Bit of a discrepancy, David, in the schedule when you look at Alabama, the opener in 2014, the opener in 2015, Georgia Southern. So a little bit easier task to get things started. There's a bit of a underwhelming rivalry, not necessarily a big-time rivalry, but it's nice to keep Maryland on the slate. I know that there's been some issues there with the Terps, and there's been some rivalry makings of rivalry there with the Terps. How do you like the schedule? How does it set up for the Mountaineers?
Actually, it's a lot harder. In my opinion, it's harder than it was last year. Georgia Southern actually ended up having their starting quarterback, as of 2 nights ago, be suspended for the West Virginia game. Georgia Southern ended up winning the Sun Belt last year, and they ended up taking NC State and Georgia Tech to the wire on the road last year. So they're actually not that bad of a team. But without their starting quarterback and playing a night game in Morgantown, West Virginia shouldn't really have a big problem. But the big points of the schedule is going to Norman, going to Waco, and going to Fort Worth. Having the top 3 teams in the Big 12 being road games is brutal. So, I mean, you could almost say if West Virginia wins one of those games and wins all the games that they should, it should be a pretty successful season considering, I mean, it's pretty tough going, like, having to go to Baylor and then having 10 days and then going to Fort Worth. That's pretty rough. So whenever it comes to actually, like, playing Texas at home, Texas Tech is at home, Oklahoma State's at home, that helps. But the schedule, whenever it comes to the month of October, does not give West Virginia that's a brutal October.
And just to add some ammunition to your Georgia Southern opener, they were the team that went to Gainesville 2 years ago and upset Florida on the road as well with a blocked punt late in the football game that was infamous in Will Muschamp's downfall. All right, David, interesting football program here in that very established in the Big East and even prior to that under the Don Nehlen regime, going back as an Eastern power, played very well, was really the one team out of the Big East for a long time that would step out of conference and play really well against national powers, especially in bowl competition against the likes of Virginia Tech and Georgia, games like that, Oklahoma winning a bowl game against the Sooners. Then you step into Big 12 play. It's obviously a stretch geographically. How is this, if it has benefited West Virginia? Your thoughts about the state of the program? It's not USC, Ohio State, where we expect big wins every year, but this is a proud tradition throughout history that's jumped up and had some very successful runs.
That's actually a really good point. West Virginia did a very good job of being a good Big East team whenever it came to being able to recruit about decent three-star talent and then fill in the rest with a good three-star to be able to just kind of have the best people on the field whenever you're playing Big East competition and be able to use that talent to just kind of out-muscle anybody. And then whenever you're playing, as you said, the big non-conference games, be able to possibly come up and knock somebody out. But now whenever you're playing actually legitimate program week in, week out, West Virginia did have to go through that transition of becoming a Big East program to a Big 12 program. Luckily, we had a Big 12 coach to do that. So right now, whenever you're looking at the amount of scholarships West Virginia has, they were a little bit plagued whenever it came through some self-inflicted penalties whenever it came to the NCAA. They actually self-penalized themselves whenever it came to scholarship numbers. So now that they're back at the full slate whenever it comes to scholarships, and you have everybody on the roster that should be on scholarship is on scholarship, you actually have a big, healthy program. Right now, West Virginia took a lot of strides last year whenever it came to win-loss record, and they're actually becoming a fully blooded Big 12 program with depth. Whenever West Virginia played in the first couple of years of Big 12, it didn't have the depth. And, I mean, again, whenever you're playing Big East teams and you don't necessarily have to have that depth, you can only just rely on the talent, it's not that big of a deal. But whenever you come to week 6 and week 7 in the Big 12, it starts to matter whenever you get injuries, and it really showed in 2012. So at this point, West Virginia has a full-blooded Big 12 team, and it's kind of nice.
Okay, West Virginia coming off 5-4 in the Big 12, maybe a bit under the radar. It's a TCU Baylor dominated conference. That's expected. Maybe some folks like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia, just under that line, could jump up with an upset or two and get into the conference mix. David Smith joining us from Smoking Musket. David, first time on the show. We enjoyed the conversation and the insight.
Mark, it's been great. Thank you very much.